Lend these guys your ear holes.
Let's go!
So we're talking today about Nintendo podcasts centered around the subject of Nintendo, all things Nintendo.
That's right, Simeon.
What are the best ones?
Well, I love podcasts so much because you can listen to them while you're driving to work, doing the laundry, getting ready for bed, going to sleep, anywhere, anytime, audio in your ears. I did one of my college speeches on podcasts to inform people that they were a thing and to encourage them to check it out. One of my 3 college... Oops.
Anyway, now me, I'm not so trained in the podcast area. Mm-hmm. I've listened to very few podcasts in my life. I don't know, it's just something that doesn't necessarily grab me. I'm more apt to listen to music. So you got to inform me.
Okay.
What is good to listen to?
Here's what I listen to and I recommend. Number 1, Nintendo Voice Chat from IGN. Fantastic podcast. It's probably the most professional Nintendo related show. They got a really nice studio. You can do video or audio, whatever you prefer. Great panel of experts on the show. People have been in the industry for years and years. People who are kind of comedians. People who really know their stuff. And people whose full-time job it is to play and write about video games. So you can really tell that they know their stuff.
That's the way to go.
I made a full video on Nintendo Voice Chat as a crew cut one time. So watch that for more information. Although it's outdated. Their main host has changed. Jose Otero went on to go work at Nintendo, so congratulations, buddy.
Congrats.
Next, we have the Game Informer podcast. Game Informer magazine, they have a show, and it's always been really good. It's kind of a well-kept secret. Now, this podcast is not entirely Nintendo, but they have a lot of Nintendo Switch fans on the podcast, and they include very helpful timestamps in the podcast, so you can skip anything you don't like. You can go right to the Nintendo segments, and also I recommend listening to the listener Q&A portion because a lot of Nintendo questions come up in that. I recommend writing into there as well. It's not hard to get into the podcast if you ask a good question. Also, the host is awesome. He's really funny. He keeps everything moving, and he's one of the best interviewers ever. At the end of each podcast, I mean, if you download a Game Informer show, it's like 3 hours long.
Oh, wow.
2.5 maybe. The last hour is always like a developer interview, or he just did like the voice actress of Zelda from Breath of the Wild recently.
Really?
And people make fools of themselves doing interviews with celebrities all the time, but this guy, he can talk for an hour, really good questions and everything, so it's very
awesome.
Good. Try that one. Next, Nintendo Dads. This is one I found not too long ago. They have a Patreon page, and this is the main thing that they output, so it's a weekly podcast, and they really have so often polarizing likes and dislikes, and they kind of get in arguments and stuff, but it's so well-natured that I just like hearing the different views and stuff. And they do have the dad perspective of being a Nintendo fan with kids. It's not like overdone, so that's all they're talking about, but It is nice to get that perspective once in a while.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, that would be like my worries. It's just dads talking about being dads with some Nintendo.
It's really not.
Oh.
It's the other way around. And the last one that I listen to on a regular basis is Game Scoop from IGN. Another show from them, so it's got the same benefits as Nintendo Voice Chat, except it's not Nintendo specific. But again, lots of Switch fans that host that show, and they're very on top of the news. They cover a lot of things going on in the industry, very informative, and retro knowledgeable as well. They have these fun like 8-bit music segues in there, and they also do video game 20 questions each week at the end of the podcast. So
that's crazy.
That is where we got the idea for those videos. So thank you for that, Game Scoop.
And that's not just Nintendo. That's crazy that they... How often do they get it?
More often than not.
Wow.
A little bit more often than not.
That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just console, it's handheld, arcade, PC, text adventures.
No. There's no way I'd be able to do that. It's nuts.
And it's kind of funny. One of the hosts always burns the first question on something dumb. Like, does this character wear a hat? Or can you see your hands in this game? So it's a fun time. It's fun to play along and see if you can guess it. Now, we polled our patrons to see what podcast they listen to as well.
And what they recommend.
Yes.
Enrique Lopez says, your podcast, in other words, the Two Button Crew podcast. Nintendo Voice Chat and Nintendo World Report is another one that he recommends.
I need to try out Nintendo World Report.
Glenn says, the TB Cast. I almost called it the TVC Cast. The TV Cast.
Yep.
Brawl in the Family podcast, hosted by Matthew Toronto and Chris Stewart.
I didn't know.
I don't think I knew either. I might have heard of it before, but I guess it never registered.
I know that Matthew's a cool guy.
Great content creator. He is. Molehill Mountain podcast.
Okay.
It's and Glenn says it's not explicitly about Nintendo, but one of the hosts, Andrew Eisen of Nintendo.
Him, right?
Andrew Eisen?
Yeah. We've watched his YouTube videos.
Who's he?
He made the Why You Won't Let Me Give You My Money video. Anyway, he makes... You would recognize his face.
Okay, I probably would.
Yeah.
The Nintendo Why Won't You Let Me Give You Money fame is a self-professed Nintendo fanboy.
Yeah.
And he says, then there's always Game Explains discussion videos.
Okay.
Which is another recommendation.
Okay, I just have to be painfully honest. I'm sorry if this offends anyone, but yes, Game Explains discussion videos are great, but I can't recommend their podcast.
You can't?
No. It could be good, it just needs some work. I really think that Andre should make it a point to show up for each podcast.
Show up, boy.
Yeah.
Matthew H. Mason says, like most everyone else, I listen to NVC, although not having Jose Otero kind of made it lose its charm a bit.
I think it's still good.
I also like Power Pros podcast, although once Chris Slate left, also for Nintendo. Ironically, Chris Slate, Nintendo Power writer.
That's what this means. It's the Power Bros, right? Power Pros podcast.
Yeah.
Is old Nintendo Power people.
And he got...
I gotta try that out.
Yes, you do.
Cool recommendation.
The quality took a dip depending on the co-host. I like Dan Koopman's eShop Action Committee for its solid indie interviews, and 8 to 4 play tackles a lot of Nintendo considering their station in Japan.
Thank you for the cool recommendations. I recognize Koopman. He helps with Go Nintendo. He has his own kind of review website. He also contributes to Nintendo Force. He's like very involved in the industry, and I did not know that there was an indie specific podcast, so that sounds right up my alley.
That sounds genius.
Thank you, patrons.
Thierry says, I listen to IGN's Nintendo Voice Chat podcast every week, but that's it really. And then lastly, Eric Flapjack Ashley says, I used to listen to NVC, but I have moved more to watching vlogs and stuff from Game Explain as opposed to listening to podcasts anymore.
Cool. Thank you so much for weighing in on this episode, patrons.
Absolutely.
Simeon, if there's one common thread, one show you should try out...
Nintendo Voice Chat. That
sir.
seems to be the common thread that weaves through all of these.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to our podcast.
Yes, listen to our podcast. Also, go to our website, twobuttoncrew.com, where we have content every single day of the week.
High five, everybody. See you guys next time.
Signing out.